Hello everyone, my name is Halvi. In this video we are going to see if it's possible to beat Fire Emblem Genealogy of the Holy War using only Sigurd and Seliph. As for the rules of the run, basically Sigurd and Seliph will be the only units I use to damage and defeat enemies and bosses so that I can seize the castles and beat each map. There are a few instances of other units seeing combat and getting a few kills because of things that are out of my control, and we'll go over that when we get there. So starting things off in the prologue, I'm going to put the others in the castle and then unleash Sigurd upon the enemies. It should come as no surprise when I say that Sigurd kinda breezes through these first couple maps. At base, he can one-round most of the enemies on this map, and I do want to kill all of the enemies for the experience. The only village I'm really concerned with is the one at the bottom with the speed ring. That is pretty essential for the run. So while Sigurd is working on seizing the first castle, let's just go over him as a unit. He is a Knight Lord, which is an already promoted class, and he has a mount. Being pre-promoted doesn't affect his experience or level gain though. So Sigurd starts off at level 5 with very strong base stats, and his growth rates are pretty good. 110% in HP means that he'll always get 1 HP on level up and a 10% chance to gain 2 points, which I think happened once in the run. Then his resistance is really low at 5%, but that's to be expected for a physical unit, and magic users could give him some trouble. But I would say the worst part about his growths is his speed at 30%. But still, with his high base speed, the +5 from the speed ring, and the fact that swords have low weight, he won't have any problems doubling the majority of enemies. So any extra speed that he gets from level ups helps him to double with lances and adds to his avoid. Then thanks to his mount, he has a very high mobility and gets Canto, which is very powerful in this game. Canto in this game allows the unit to move again after almost any action, so things that Sigurd can do a lot is like kill a boss and then seize the castle in the same turn. He has 2 leadership stars which give him a constant +10 hit and avoid. He starts out with 5,000 gold, and Sigurd has the pursuit skill which allows him to double enemies if his attack speed is higher than theirs. Sigurd has Major Balder Holy Blood, which allows him to use pretty much any sword. There are a few exceptions though, and he can use the Holy Sword Tyrfing, which he gets in chapter 5. He also has B rank in lances, and there is no such thing as weapon experience in this game, so Sigurd will remain at B rank lances. Overall, Sigurd is a fantastic unit, and I would definitely consider him to be one of the best units in the entire series. I do use the autosave feature in this run, which gives me the option to save at the start of every turn. I used it just so that if something were to go wrong late into a chapter, then I could restart from my most recent turn save instead of having to restart the entire chapter. And this just saved me a lot of time in the long run. So after Sigurd seizes the first castle, he can run up and talk to Arvis to get a silver sword. With this silver sword, Sigurd can one-round the rest of the enemies on this map except for the boss, and this silver sword will be Sigurd's weapon of choice for the majority of the run, and it will probably kill most enemies in the entire game. When I do fight the boss here, Sigurd does have a chance to die, but I decide to risk it anyway, since I could just restart the turn if something bad were to happen. But nothing did, so that is the prologue complete. At the start of chapter 1, I go ahead and send Sigurd into the arena. Early on, the arena is good for getting gold and experience, so Sigurd can easily clear the arena, and he gets a couple level ups out of it. I also decide to buy a javelin so that he has a 1 to 2 range option for combat. Here's how Sigurd's looking so far. He's very strong in all areas except for resistance. The enemies in this chapter are still no match for Sigurd. There are quite a few archers, so I try out the javelin, which is really heavy and slows Sigurd down by a lot, but he's still able to double enemies with it, and he can get much better enemy phases. Then I'm going to ignore the first castle for now because I want to get rid of these enemies that have been chasing after Du and Edain, and we run into the problem where enemies won't attack if they have 0 hit chance. This happened in the prologue too, so what I can do about that is put Sigurd on a road tile, which will lower his avoid by 10, and that must have been just enough for them to have at least a little bit of hit on him, so they attack and he takes them out on enemy phase and gets through them a little quicker. I'll be doing that a lot throughout the run, but eventually it will get to the point where it's still not enough and enemies will still have 0 hit on him, even on a road tile. So now we're kind of right in the middle of the first 2 castles, and there are villages being burned down close to the second castle, so we might as well kill the brigand on the village and then take out the enemies near the second castle. The silver sword is started close to breaking, so I switched to the steel sword for the last few of these guys. And you're going to see me use a church to heal for the first time in the run. This game doesn't have healing items like vulneraries and elixirs, so churches and castles are really my only options for healing. There's also the renewal band, but I actually don't get it in Gen 1, and it comes in really late in Gen 2. Winning in the arena also heals you to full HP, so there are some times in the run where there are no churches nearby, but I can go into a castle, and as long as I didn't clear the arena yet, I could go in and win a match, and then I'll be fully healed. But whenever I need to heal during the run, my first option would be a church, since they give you a full heal just from ending your turn on one. Churches and castles both cost gold to recover HP, but it's really just a trivial amount in the grand scheme of things. I grab the village that's kind of far away, and then take out Gandalf and seize his castle. I repair my weapons and sell a hand axe I can't use, and then the home castle may at first seem like it's being threatened, but green units actually do something useful and take care of it for me. We also get the skill ring from Gandalf, which is a nice thing to have, but it's not like an essential to have, so most of the time I'll have other items and weapons that I'll need to have, and I won't have enough room for the skill ring. I still have to go back and seize the first castle in order to progress through the map. Ira tries to fight Sigurd, and it really doesn't work out for her. Seizing the first two castles opens up the path to the third and final castle of this map. The enemies are still really weak, so I just work on racking up those kills on that silver sword. Jamka could have given me problems, but luckily he didn't, and it was really easy to kill him on player phase. I do run into a problem though, where I went too far and Deirdre appeared and she was in range of some enemies, and I was worried they would attack her, and I'd rather her not see combat, so I reset and was more careful of advancing and making sure that when she does show up, there are no enemies around, or I could move her safely out of range. Then there are still a few more enemies to take out up by the castle, and I had to make sure I fought them outside of the boss's Fenrir range, just so Sigurd doesn't take any unnecessary damage. But I do eventually have to run back and heal at a church before finally taking on the boss, who does just get one rounded, but he deals a lot of damage, so Sigurd had to be pretty much at full HP before fighting him, and then I can seize to end chapter 1. Starting off in chapter 2, I just do the usual things like clearing out the arena, and Sigurd has no issues with that. I repair my weapons and set up my inventory the way I want it. That last boss dropped a magic ring, which is pretty much of no use aside from selling, but I just put it in the storage for now since gold caps out at 50,000. So storing items that are worth a lot of gold is a kind of like a way to store extra gold for later. Also, something very important happened towards the end of the last chapter, which is that the silver sword has over 50 kills, and if you didn't know, once a weapon has over 50 kills, it gives the user the critical skill when they use it, and in this game, units can't normally perform critical hits. Crits are only possible with skills or the lover's sibling bonus, so for a unit like Sigurd who doesn't have the critical skill, he can get critical hits if his weapon has over 50 kills. He gets 1 point of crit for each kill over 50 on the weapon, and the kill count caps at 100. So once the silver sword or any weapon reaches 100 kills, it will have a base of 50 crits, which is crazy. And then the unit's skill stat is further added to that to get the full critical chance. And on top of that, the damage for critical hits is also calculated differently in this game, and I would say that for the most part, they hit a lot harder in this game compared to others. So when a unit gets a crit, their attack stat is doubled, and then the opponent's defense or resistance is subtracted from that. So pretty powerful stuff. Also, critical avoid is always 0 for every unit unless they have the nihil skill, in which case they cannot be crit. Anyways, I was really slow at the start of this map and wasted a lot of time with the first group of enemies before I realize I need to get a move on if I want to save the village with the bargain ring. And I guess I'll just say it, I don't get the bargain ring, and I don't want to restart the chapter over to try and get it, but there are lots of other good items that I get in this chapter. Philip has the return band, which is an essential item for this run, I would say. Philip is also a general, and he gives us a look at probably the most annoying skill in the game, which is Pavis. When it activates, it negates all damage, and a lot of bosses have it, it, and eventually even generic enemies will have it. I really hate that skill in this game. The bosses love it though. Then the boss of the first castle drops the barrier ring, which gives resistance, and it's useful for when I have to fight magic users. Then after seizing the first castle, I go straight ahead to the second castle, and as I was fighting the enemies up there, Sigurd got killed for the first time, so I reset, and this time I killed the enemy that killed me, and I just had to hope Sigurd would survive this time, and he did. I don't know why those sword armors didn't attack. I'm pretty sure they had a decent hit chance, but luckily there is a church close by, so I run away to heal up, and then I'm ready to face a bunch of enemies coming in. The boss of these guys drops a Paragon Band, which will double Sigurd's experience gain and help him reach level 30, which is the level cap for this game. Also, Beowulf did the same thing as Ira and thought he had a chance against Sigurd, but with their leaders gone, these other guys lost the will to fight and won't attack, so now I just have to slowly kill one of them each turn, trying to free myself so that I can get to Macbeth to take him out to seize the next castle. It takes 2 rounds to kill him because he got 1 Pavis, but he drops a shield ring, which gives +5 defense, and that is just really nice to have. Usually Sigurd relies on dodging, but now if he ever does get hit, it will take a lot of them to take him down. So the last 2 castles are on the whole other side of the map, so this is when the return band comes in handy because it can return me to the home castle and only the home castle. I can't go to any other castle under my control. I mean, that'd be awesome if I could, but sadly that's not the case. Using return uses up my turn completely though, so Sigurd will just chill in the castle for a turn. Then Aranis and her squad are heading straight for the home castle, and there are 2 other groups of enemies heading towards Nordion Castle. It will take a few turns for Aranis to reach the castle, so I figure I might as well see if I can deal with those other enemies, and I managed to take out both commanders. The others didn't want to attack me though, but Aranis is now closing in, so I need to get back to base, and of course they won't attack me since the castle gives +30 avoid, and I can't wait on the home castle's gate, and I also can't leave the castle unguarded because I'm fairly certain enemies will always prioritize destroying castles, which would give me a game over if the home castle was destroyed. So I'm going to have to kill them one at a time each turn, and while that goes on, Lachesis dies and Nordion gets taken over, but it doesn't really matter. There are 2 of those cavaliers left who will chase down Lewin and Sylvia. Then once I finish off the Pegasus Knights, I managed to catch up to the cavaliers and take them out before they were able to attack either Lewin or Sylvia, and I might as well collect what I can from these villages since I'm up here. So I go back to the home castle to repair my weapons and get all prepared for the next castle, and once again most of the enemies don't want to attack me, so I have to slowly kill them 1 per turn, all while staying out of the boss's sleep staff range. Then luckily he is really weak and gets 1 rounded and I can seize, and Sigurd was low on HP, so I take a few turns to heal up at the castle. Now at this point I can only guess that most of these enemies won't attack me, and I'm just ready to be done with this map, so I brute force myself up to Chagall as quick as I can and kill him and seize to end this chapter. At the start of chapter 3, I just repair my weapons and set Sigurd's inventory the way I want it. I don't do the arena because Sigurd doesn't need any money at the moment, and here's how he's looking right now. I can't complain, his stats are looking great. So I know that there are a couple groups of enemies that charge after the home castle at the start of this map, so instead of slowly dealing with them, my plan is to just rush as fast as I can to seize the first castle, and doing that will get rid of all of those initial enemies except for the pirates going after the villages. There are 2 villages that I really want to save, one that gives +3 strength and one that gives +1 defense. So by seizing the first castle quickly, I get a lot more time to deal with the pirates and save the villages that I want. Sigurd does come close to dying, and he very well could have, but it all worked out on my very first attempt. The boss of the first castle also drops a bolt sword, a 1 to 2 range magic sword that I really want and will replace the javelin as Sigurd's 2 range option. The bolt sword does physical damage at 1 range and magic damage at 2 range, so it is weaker than the javelin at 2 range, but once it gets enough kills to be able to crit, it will do plenty of damage. It also won't slow him down nearly as much. Another thing is that the bolt sword can get passed on to Seliph, while the javelin cannot. So I feel like giving the javelin enough kills to crit would be kind of wasteful since only Sigurd would be able to make use of it, and 2 range isn't even all that useful for Sigurd for the rest of Gen 1 anyway. It's more of just an extra thing for him. Now Eldigan comes out and I really don't want to deal with him, but for now I have some time to get the villages. So I go to the one to give strength first, and it usually would give +3, but Sigurd only got 2 because he hit his strength cap at 25. And if there's anything bad I can say about Sigurd, it would be his class's stat caps. Strength at 25 is decent, but skill, speed, and defense all cap at 22, which is just too low in my opinion, and Seliph suffers from the same problem since he will end up in the same class as his father. The rings help a lot though, so it's not the end of the world. I go and use a church to heal up, and Eldigan seems to just be focused on going after Sigurd. He doesn't want to go after the home castle or anything, which is good. So I figure I might as well see if I can feed kills to the bolt sword off of his cross knights, and if we stay in the forest, I can probably avoid Eldigan's range. I get a chance to see how Sigurd sizes up to Eldigan, and oh boy, Sigurd would actually get massacred. Eldigan's leadership stars are just too strong. He has 5, giving him and enemies within 3 spaces of him plus 40 hit and avoid. It just blows Sigurd's leadership stars out of the water. So I just say screw this. I don't actually have to fight him. I can just kill Chagall and seize the second castle, and then Eldigan will just disappear. The only problem with this though is that the boss with the renewal band doesn't show up, and I missed out on that. But the hassle of trying to fight Eldigan is definitely not worth the renewal band, and the fight with Chagall is not going great at all. He keeps dodging and getting Pavis. Sigurd's HP is getting low, and Eldigan is getting really close. Okay, Sigurd, you really need to hit this. Thank you. Now I can seize, and everything is good again, or maybe not, because Bridget, Claude, and Tailtew show up and are surrounded by enemies, and Bridget doesn't even get a chance to run away, and 2 of them attack her, and she kills them on counterattack. Now I can go get the village above me, and this is the one that gives +1 defense, and I really can't do anything to keep Bridget, Tailtew, and Claude out of combat. So with Bridget, I just move her down into the swarm of enemies and hope that she'll get killed quick enough before she kills too many enemies herself, and she kills a total of 6 by the time they kill her. Then I put Claude in front of Tailtew so he gets killed first, and then Tailtew gets into wrath range and kills 1 enemy before she gets killed. And unequipping weapons is just not a thing in this game, so it's not like I could just do that. Meanwhile, the other enemies are heading for the home castle, and I tried to intercept them with Sigurd, but he really needed healing, and I couldn't quite make it to the church in time, and I was being really dumb at this point and didn't realize I could have just fought in the arena to heal myself after I seized the second castle. I think I was just too concerned with getting to that village right away, so I ended up having to use return, and then I just guard the castle, and the boss of this first group of pirates attacks me, and he drops a leg ring, which I definitely want, and it will be on Sigurd at all times. These other pirates won't attack, so I will just be killing them 1 per turn with the bolt sword. Also, Chagall dropped a silver blade, and I sent the silver sword to the supply and kept the silver blade. I was thinking that maybe it would be worth it to try and get the silver blade enough kills to crit, since it has more might than the silver sword and it's not that much heavier, but my focus was still on feeding kills to the bolt sword, and by the end of this chapter I realized that the silver blade probably won't work out and the silver sword will be good enough. So to finish off this chapter, I will be very slowly killing every last one of the pirates, feeding all of them to the bolt sword. By the end of it all, it broke and reached a total of 39 kills, and I just had to use the silver blade to kill the last couple enemies and the boss, who drops a power ring that gives +5 strength and will stay on Sigurd all the time. The start of chapter 4 is actually pretty rough. The first major group of enemies that I have to deal with are wind magic users that have very high hits, and they do quite a bit of damage to Sigurd, who has really low resistance even with the barrier ring. I had to restart a few times to figure out how I can deal with these guys. I want to try and be fast as well to save as many villages as I can, because I'm going to need a lot of gold for the next chapter. But the first thing I need to do here is take out the commander. He has a sleep staff and 3 leadership stars, so he really needs to go. Then for the rest of the mages, Sigurd just doesn't have a good 2-range option for them. The javelin is too heavy to double with and lowers Sigurd's avoid by a lot, and the bolt sword is at a weapon triangle disadvantage, and even though it can double, its damage output is so low at 2 range, he still can't 1-round these guys with it. If I could have gotten enough kills on it to crit, then there would be a chance of 1-rounding, but it doesn't have enough yet, so I'll just have to equip the silver sword and kill them 1 at a time on player phase. But then the second group of enemies started coming in, who are a bunch of Pegasus Knights, and their leader also has 3 leadership stars stars, so she becomes my next high priority enemy to take out, and luckily I do get an opening to attack her right away, and the hit rates didn't look too good, but I got even more luck and Sigurd crit to kill her on the very first attack. The rest of the Pegasus Knights will be dealt with on enemy phase, all except for one. Then Sigurd is actually getting really low on HP, there are no churches around, and I'm being pushed back into a corner, so I might as well try and grab a village and kill a couple mages before I have to return to the castle and heal up at the church. The mages are a little easier to deal with now since I can run up and kill one and then cancel out of the range of the others. I'm using the silver sword to kill these guys because I want to crit on the first attack so that I don't have to face a counter attack. I get a chance to save what little remains of the villages. There are a few more enemies to take out before I go back to the castle and heal at a church one more time, and I can finally head towards the first castle that I need to seize. Thankfully, Sigurd can cross these mountain tiles to get there, and once he's there, I'll take the opportunity to stay in these mountains and take my time to kill all of these enemies with the bolt sword. Sigurd still manages to get hit enough to bring him down to 1 HP, and I forgot about the fact that in this game, there is no such thing as dealing 0 damage, so even though Sigurd's defense was higher than this guy's attack, Sigurd got hit and took 1 damage and died. So I restarted and returned to heal up, then I made my way back and decided since I'm at full health, I should take out the boss first. Then I finished up those last 2 enemies and seized. Then we have to wait for green units to get slaughtered, so I figure I might as well have Sigurd clear the arena for gold. Then seizing the next castle was no trouble at all for Sigurd. There were some mages and warriors that were able to hit him, but even still, Sigurd was fine. While the next groups of enemies head towards me, I take the time to just heal at the castle. Then there is a priest with a physics staff in this group that I want to take out because it going around healing enemies would get really annoying, but I guess I underestimated the damage that the other enemies could do to Sigurd, and he actually dies. So I reset and decide to just let them come a little closer and see what I could do then. But the healer is not in my range, so I end up having to just try and kill another enemy and then retreat back to the castle. And from there, Sigurd doesn't do the greatest against the thunder mages, but the sword masters and the boss attack, and Sigurd is able to kill them on enemy phase. Now I'm getting really tired of all the damage these thunder mages are doing, so I run up to kill the last one, but I couldn't make it back to the castle and it ends up getting destroyed. But it's okay, as I can just retreat back here to these forest tiles, and from there, Sigurd can slowly but surely kill the rest of these enemies, and the boss of these Pegasus Knights gets killed early on, making things a lot easier since I don't have to deal with her leadership stars. The bolt sword does great work here since it can now crit. Now I just need to go back to the castle to repair my weapons and heal up. Now the last boss of this map was really annoying. My hit chances were not great, so he kept dodging me. He also has Pavis. He won't attack me at 1 range if I wait at the gate, and 1 crit from the silver sword was just barely not enough to kill him from full health. He wears me down enough that I have to go back and heal up and come back for round 2. This time though, I was finally able to kill him and seize to end the map. Sigurd hit level 30 during the last chapter, and here is how he turned out. He capped his strength and was 1 point from capping defense. I feel like if there's anything he could have gotten more of, it's luck, but he's done a great job so far in the run, and I doubt he'll have any problems for the rest of it. And then starting things off in chapter 5, I need to get Sigurd to his father Byron as fast as possible because that is how we get Tyrfing. So I used the bolt sword to take out the bulk of this first group of enemies that are blocking the way. Soon enough, I can get close enough that Byron will just talk to me on his phase, saving me some time. Tyrfing is broken, however, and it automatically gets equipped, which is annoying. I need to go back to the castle to repair it, and the castle is being threatened as well. I take out a couple brigands on the way though, because I do want to try and save these villages. Tyrfing cost 50,000 gold to repair, so I clear out the arena to get as much gold as I can, and now with all of these enemies around, I have no choice but to just guard the castle. It takes a while to kill them all because I have to kill most of them one at a time each player phase since they won't attack me, although there were 2 bosses along with them, and if the other enemies would benefit from their leadership stars, then they would attack and allow me to take out a lot on enemy phase. But other than that, I try to give as many kills to Tyrfing as I could because, as you could probably guess, once Tyrfing is able to crit, it will just melt through anything in one shot. Sigurd has 60 attack with it, and it also gives him plus 10 to skill and speed and plus 20 to resistance. I would say Sigurd is pretty invincible with it equipped. I actually don't get it to 51 kills in this map, but I get a decent amount on it by the end. And unfortunately, while all of this was going on, most of the villages got destroyed and there was barely anything left for me to save by the time I was able to leave the castle. Langbalt is a really easy boss. He has a lot of defense, but that's about it. It still only takes 2 rounds to kill him. Then there were 2 untouched villages over here, so that's good because I really need money so I can keep using Tyrfing. I seize the first castle and I sell some things that I would never need from my supply so that I can repair Tyrfing as much as possible, and I have 35 uses of it for the rest of the map. The next castle is really easy to seize because there aren't a lot of enemies, and they're also all magic users who are no longer a real threat to Sigurd now that he has Tyrfing. Now these Draco Knights are coming in and they all have horse slayers except for the boss of them who has a brave lance. For now, I'm just going to guard the castle and see what they want to do. Only the boss attacks me, so if I can take him out, then I wouldn't have to worry about his leadership stars, which is good. Then as for the horse slayers, they can actually do a good chunk of damage to Sigurd. Their hit rates are around 30% if I leave the castle, so with as many of them that there are, I think Sigurd could easily die. So for now, I just kill them one at a time until there are about half of them left. I think now I can risk letting them attack Sigurd on enemy phase, and my plan worked out. I used the silver sword to kill most of them because I do need to make sure Tyrfing doesn't break so that I can use it against Reptor, the final boss of Gen 1. Reptor and his army start to move after reaching a certain part of the map. Reptor has Mjolnir, which gives him plus 20 to skill and plus 10 to speed. He has 60 attack, so even with Tyrfing, Sigurd will still take a lot of damage from him. He has a lot of hit too, so dodging is out of the question, and he has 4 leadership stars. So to start, I want to take out any and all healers. Things would be a lot easier if I didn't have to worry about them. Then I want to just run up and take out an enemy and then retreat backwards each turn. I'd rather there not be a lot of other enemies around when it comes time to fight Reptor. Eventually, I get to the point where I'm running out of places to run away to, but luckily things worked out and Reptor was forced to attack me at 1 range, and Sigurd just killed him on the counter. This was like the best outcome for fighting him because if he would have been able to attack me at 2 range, I would have had to waste time running away to heal since I would have been too low on HP to attack him on player phase then. So with Reptor gone, Sigurd's part of the game comes to an end and Seliph's part begins. Gen 2 begins with Chapter 6, and Seliph, the son of Sigurd and Deirdre, is now the Lord. So the first thing I do here is run into the castle so that I can set up his inventory the way I want it. I'll give him both the silver sword and the bolt sword. He'll also get the power, speed, shield, and leg rings. And lastly, he gets the Paragon band so he can get as many level ups as possible in this chapter. So while Seliph works on seizing the first castle, let's talk about him as a unit. He starts out as a level 1 junior lord, and his base stats can vary a little, but compared to his father's, he's a lot worse and is much more of a traditional lord. Seliph's growths, however, are all superior to Sigurd's, especially in HP, magic, and resistance. He has a 40% chance to get 2 points of HP on a level up compared to Sigurd's 10% chance. Having a decent magic growth is good for the bolt sword, and actually having a chance to get resistance is really important too. But like I mentioned a lot earlier, Seliph promotes to Lord Knight, the same class as his father, and it suffers from having very low stat caps. His only starting item is a slim sword, but he inherits all of Sigurd's swords and items except for Tyrfing, and not only that, but the kill count on the weapons remains, so right away Seliph can crit with both the silver sword and the bolt sword, and this will really help him kill enemies and level up fast. He has 3 leadership stars, so he always gets a plus 20 bonus to his hit and avoid. He can only use swords. He gets the pursuit skill from his father and the nihil skill from his mother. Nihil makes it so that Seliph cannot be crit, and he will never take effective damage like from horse slayers after he promotes. It's a good skill when the player has it, but very annoying when the enemy has it. And he has major boulder blood from his father and minor naga blood from his mother. I think Seliph is a really good unit. He has the potential to be everything his father was, and and possibly even more. So after seizing the first castle, Seliph takes out a bunch of axe fighters and axe cavaliers, and then I want to try and save as many villages as I can, and this takes me down pretty close to the last castle, but I don't really do anything with it now, although this does aggro another group of axe cavaliers, and my bolt sword breaks while fighting them, and silver sword is about to break too, so I have to head over and seize Izok Castle so that I can repair my weapons and get out the return band to go back to the home castle, because Seliph just hit level 20, so he should be able to promote already. And I didn't know this, but you can't promote during this chapter. I guess it's because Lewin's not here and you need his permission first. So I realized this and we'll just promote at the start of next chapter. But here's how he's looking so far. He got really strong after just one map. I leave the castle and meet up with those axe cavaliers and finish them off because it doesn't really hurt anything. I can still keep getting experience. Then I figure I might as well seize Sofara Castle before finally making my way to Danon, who aside from having Pavis isn't a problem to take down. He drops a nice thief sword and I can seize to end chapter 6. So right away at the start of chapter 7, I promote Seliph and his promotion bonuses are really good. He's only level 22 and he's 1 point away from capping strength. He already capped skill and everything else is looking great. Then I clear out the arena because I could really use the gold. Now the first part of this map is actually really tough. There are a lot of magic users I need to get through to seize the first castle, and Seliph does have decent resistance, but they can still do a lot of damage to him. He can at least counter them at 2 range with the bolt sword, but it needs 2 crits to kill them, and there's a good chance for that to happen. Also, I try to keep Leaf, Finn, and Jean away from the enemies going after them, but eventually I gave up and just let them get killed because it takes a really long time for me to seize this first castle, and the reason it takes so long is because for every Dark Bishop that Seliph kills, more and more just show up out of that Yeed Shrine castle almost immediately. I didn't even know this could happen. I always thought that an enemy commander had to return to the castle and then they'd like enter it, and on the next turn they would come out with a whole new squad, but here they were just spawning out of the castle. I know like lore wise that is where they're supposed to be living or were living at one point not too long ago, but this was just getting ridiculous. They just wouldn't stop, and then they had just enough hit on Seliph that they were hitting him a lot and forcing me to keep running back to the castle to heal up. And not only that, but the armor knights that came out of Ulster Castle and killed Leaf's group actually made their way up to Seliph, and I took care of them, and then to my surprise more of them just started spawning out of Ulster Castle, and I was like, what the heck? I've never seen this before. Will they ever stop? This was just making it impossible to safely approach the Yeed Shrine. I was really getting tired of this. I wasn't even getting any experience from them. So all I was doing was just wasting my weapons and gold. So I had to try something and thought that maybe I could loop them around this like cliff thing and we'll get ahead of them so I could just leave them alive, since the reason they kept coming out was because they were just replacing the ones I've been killing. On the way to the boss then, Seliph was brought down to 1 HP and I thought for sure he was going to die, but I really had no choice but to continue on and just hope for the best. And I have no idea how he did it, but he dodged so many like 30% hits and hung on with that 1 HP and just refused to die until he killed the boss and seized to end this madness. And the boss dropped the bargain band, which cuts the cost of repairs and buying things in half, which is a very nice reward for what I just went through. I heal up the castle for a few turns and get the idea to bring out the thief sword, and when I hit an enemy with it, I steal their gold. The thing is that I wasn't able to get any of the villages in this chapter, but with the thief sword, I don't really have to be concerned with villages anymore unless they give a good item. Now the rest of this map is actually pretty easy compared to the beginning. I'm usually able to fight enemies safely from like a mountain tile or something else that gives a void. There is also a church right in between the second and third castles that I can always use to heal if I need it. The problem with the thief sword though is that it only has 3 might. Its hit isn't all that great either, but since it has such low might, it won't 1-round most enemies, but if it gets enough kills to be able to crit, then it would be able to 1-round most enemies. So that's basically what I do for most of this map, is just steal gold and give kills to the thief sword. Although I didn't realize it at the time, but next chapter I will be getting an item that will make the thief sword pretty obsolete. After seizing Melgen Castle, more enemies come out of Darna and Ulster, and I want to fight Jabaro and his squad of cavaliers first, since they have a lot of move and I want to get Ares out of there so he doesn't see any combat. They're really easy to take down though, and then there was a strong group of magic users that came from Ulster that are closing in on Melgen, and I'd rather it not get destroyed if I can help it, so I managed to get down there and take care of that group of enemies in time. Then I can go back and seize Darna. I don't think I had to, but I might as well. The last boss of this map is Bloom, and he has the Mjolnir spell, so he hits pretty hard and is accurate, and thanks to his 4 leadership stars, he makes it hard to hit him, but the fight goes very well, and thanks to a crit, he goes down without too many issues, and I can seize to end this chapter. Chapter 8 is very similar to the last chapter in that the beginning is the hardest part, and then it gets a lot easier from there. So starting out, there will be a lot of enemies heading towards the castle. One group starts out closer, but they're mainly slow armor units. The other group is all cavalry, and they go after Leonster Castle first, but it's okay if that gets destroyed. There's also the mage trio from the last map making a return, and they each have leg rings, and they can cover a lot of ground each turn. It took me a few tries to get the start of this map right, but I first want to deal with the closest group of enemies, and the first one I take out is the bishop because enemy healers are annoying. Now I can take out a lot of these guys on enemy phase with the bolt sword, including the boss here, which is really good. I'm able to quickly take out the remaining enemies here, and then I still have time before the cavalry group can reach the home castle, so I take out a brigand and try to save a village, and then I'm even able to take out one of the mage trio before I return to the castle to guard it from the cavalry group. I do one fight in the arena to heal myself up, and surprisingly these cavaliers actually attack me so that I can counter and kill them on enemy phase, all except for the troubadours. I'll have to kill them on player phase. The boss of these guys also gets himself killed on enemy phase, and Seliph hits level 30, so here's how he turned out. Overall, I think he is much stronger than what Sigurd was. Sigurd did have 5 more points of defense, but defense isn't really that important, where I want to be dodging most of the time anyway. Seliph capped his strength and skill and came pretty close to capping speed. Seliph also got really lucky with getting 2 points of HP in a lot of his level ups, and has 14 more points of it than what Sigurd had, but Seliph needed to be stronger than his father because his final opponents are much stronger than Sigurd's. Now it's time to go and seize the first castle. There are a few enemies that I need to get through first, and Bloom has a bolting, which is all he really has going for him, and he's easier to take down the second time since he doesn't have Mjolnir anymore. Now there is only one more castle to seize, and there are a lot of Draco Knights that show up, but my main concern is getting to the village with the thief ring. I really want this item, and if I'm fast enough I can get it. On the way I can take out one of the groups of Draco Knights, the one with the boss, and another group goes after Hawk, and he just kills them all on enemy phase. Then all that's left to do is cut through the last group of Draco Knights as well as the ballista, and I can quickly make my way to take out the next boss and seize the last castle of this map. Chapter 9 is going to be a lot of guarding the home castle, and then it gets really tough towards the end. Last chapter we got a brave sword from that one Draco Knight boss, and I think I want to use this over the silver sword. The brave sword only has 2 less might, and Seliph can attack 4 times with it, and once it gets enough kills for it to crit, it will just straight up be stronger than the silver sword. So throughout most of this map I'll be trying to feed it as many kills as possible. It gets a little hard to do that at the start though. There will be a lot of Draco Knights heading straight for the home castle in the beginning parts of this map, but I do have some time to kill some of these armor knights here before I have to run back and guard the castle. Altena's group is the first one, and she is really easy to kill, and then the rest of her group doesn't want to attack, so I have to kill them one at a time on player phase. Killing Altena brings out Travant then, and he is stronger than Altena, and he is also the first boss we've encountered that has Nihil, meaning that the way we've been killing most bosses so far with crits won't work against him. But Seliph is strong enough that he can still kill him normally with the brave sword. Then I need to kill Hannibal because he has 5 leadership stars and he can run back and get reinforcements, so he really can't be left alive. There are still a lot of enemies around, so I just have to continue to guard the castle and take them out as quickly as I can, and sometimes they were nice to me and attacked me on enemy phase to make this process faster. Now I can go and repair my weapons, and it was a slow start to the map, but now I can finally get to work on seizing castles. The first one is easy, and then before I seize the second one, I want to deal with this group of cavalry that comes in. I want to get past them and try and save as many of these villages as I can. There are a few kills for the brave sword up here too. I run back to seize the second castle, repair my weapons, and down by the third castle, these ballista are great for feeding kills kills to the Brave Sword. Seizing the third castle brings out a ton of Draco Knights, as well as the strongest boss that we've seen so far. Arion has Gungnir, giving him ridiculously strong stats. He also has really strong skills, including Nihil, so I can't just crit him, and he has 5 leadership stars to boost his hit and avoid. Needless to say, he's going to be a problem. But right now, I have to worry about the other groups of enemies that are each going after a castle. It's only the home castle that matters to me though. I can take out all but one of this first group that was closest to me. Then I have no choice but to use return to guard the home castle and hopefully deal with them all there. And it works out really well, and they attacked me so I can kill them all on enemy phase. There's still one more group out there that I can leave the castle and take them out quickly as well. Now I get prepared for what will be the toughest fight of Seliph's life so far. Arion doesn't move until you cross a certain point on the map, so I figure that getting up into these mountains and fighting him from there would be my best option. And what's going to happen is I'm going to kill most of his squad on enemy phase, and after another turn his squad is completely gone, and what this means is that he's going to return to his castle to bring out more. And I wasn't sure how many turns this would take him, so I go to try and seize the castle, and then I would be able to just end the map without fighting him. Well, this doesn't work out. I was one space away and Arion shows up right in Seliph's face and does quite a number to him. Then I guess he went back into his castle, and out came his reinforcements one by one that attack Seliph, and they're like bees coming out of there. They sting me and then just die, but they just wear Seliph down and kill him. So I reset and pull Arion again, but this time I return to the home castle, and I'm thinking that I might be better off fighting him from there since I'll get healing from the castle. And this doesn't really work out. Arion just does too much damage and Seliph can't make up the difference, and the hit rates aren't in my favor either. So I realize there's no way I can beat Arion, so my only option at this point is to try and get past him so that I can seize his castle and end the map. So what I do is try and separate him from his squad a little bit. Then I manage to kill all of his squad from the home castle and force him to return to his castle for reinforcements. Now I have to try and get there as fast as possible. The problem is I have a long way to go. So Arion and his squad catch up to me and I take them out, and once again he goes back for reinforcements, and I'm pretty close by the time these ones come out. So I plan to do the same thing I've been doing, and Seliph dies this time, but I saw what I did wrong, which is that I put him way too close to Arion because the enemies were benefiting from his leadership stars and getting hits on Seliph, and then it was no trouble for Arion to come in and get the kill. So I restart and go south this time, staying out of Arion's range completely, and now it's pretty much game over for him because I can now outmove him and seize, and he'll just disappear. Starting out in chapter 10, the first group of enemies I have to deal with are these dark mages with a dark bishop and a couple snipers and heroes. It takes a little while to defeat them all because the dark mages have really high resistance, and even 2 crits from the bolt sword isn't enough to kill them. These enemies also had just enough of a chance to hit Seliph, and midway through fighting them I had to run back and use the arena to heal up to full HP. Then there's a group of cavalry closing in on me, and they do get a lot of hits in on Seliph, and he came pretty close to dying a couple times because I was just putting his life on the line, trying to take these guys out as fast as possible. Then I skip over Kronos Castle for now and rush over to seize Rados Castle first. And it's really not important to do this. I just wanted to do Kronos Castle second because after these first 2 castles are seized, the gate to Miletos Castle opens, and I'll just be closer to the next group of enemies. And the Brave Sword hit 100 kills very early on in this map, so right now it's the most powerful sword I have, since most of the time Seliph will get 4 attacks for 4 chances to crit. Now heading up to Miletos Castle, I just start taking out enemies as I usually do, and I want to try and save at least one of these villages up here, but then Seliph gets hit by the Hell spell, bringing him down to 1 HP. I think it was around a 15% chance, so I got pretty unlucky, and I barely had anywhere to run to here. I just had to run back into the enemy head on and hope I survive until I can get past them and back to a church to heal up. So now I'm ready for round 2, and this time I'll safely take out most of them from the mountain tiles, but I also just just want to get past them and get ready to deal with Julius and Ishtar. So Julius has a leg ring, so he has a huge attack range, and they are also kind of guarding the castle, and Seliph could possibly beat either of them, but it's very high risk, low reward, as Ishtar only drops a renewal band and you get nothing from beating Julius. The best way for me to deal with them is to enter Julius's attack range and pull him away from the castle. Then as long as Seliph can survive a round of combat with him, which he does, then I can swing around and seize Mileto's castle out from behind their backs, and this will still make them warp away, just like if I were to defeat one of them. Now the chapter has been pretty easy up to this point, but now the true challenge begins. Chalfie Castle is the last one to seize for this map. However, it is guarded by none other than Arvis, who is even stronger than what Arion was last chapter. Luckily though, the game decides that this is the point for Seliph to get Tyrfing. It's not going to make it easy though. It's going to make Seliph work for it. Paulmark, the Green Bishop, has it, and I have to talk to him before he gets killed by any enemies. So I'm on a bit of a time limit, and there is a strong group of enemies in my way, and there's just the right mix of bows, lances, and magic that most of these enemies have a decent hit chance against Seliph. There's no defensive terrain around, and I doubt I can just wait them out at the castle because that would surely take too long and Paulmark would get killed, and getting Tyrfing is an absolute necessity. So it took quite a few tries, a lot of trial and error, but I do manage to find the right path to get past the enemies and get Tyrfing. And now that I have Tyrfing, it is game over for these enemies, and I do want to kill them all and start giving kills to Tyrfing. It also starts out with his full uses, which is great, and here are Seliph's stats with Tyrfing and some other rings I have. Very good overall, but how does it compare to Arvis? Not very good. Arvis's stats are insanely high. He hits really hard. His defenses are really high. He has 5 leadership stars, and he has the 2 most annoying skills, Pavis and Nihil. Beating him is not going to be easy, and it took a lot of tries to actually do it. So he can't be crit, and he has a good chance of negating or dodging my attacks. Seliph dies in 3 hits, and Arvis dies in 4. So Arvis has a huge advantage over Seliph. However, Tyrfing also gives the Miracle skill, and Miracle means that if Seliph gets hit and it brings him down to 10 HP or lower, he gets a bonus to his avoid for 1 turn. The avoid boost gets greater the closer you are to 1 HP. So if I keep Seliph at a little less than full HP and let Arvis attack first on enemy phase, then if I get hit, I attack on player phase, then if I get hit again, Miracle will activate and carry over into enemy phase, and I'll be able to dodge Arvis's next attack. So this way, Seliph dies in 4 hits as well, and it evens the playing field a little bit. The problem still is that I need to hit Arvis 4 times in a row basically. The first 2 have to be on enemy phase, and then the last 2 need to be on the next player phase. This way he won't get extra healing from the castle, which would make it so that he would be able to take an extra hit. So in the end, it really just came down to luck that I could hit 4 70% hits in a row without him dodging or getting Pavis. And like I said, it took a lot of resets, but eventually it happened. Then after killing Arvis, there is a special scene for Seliph, and he gets a renewal band. And now here we are in the final chapter of the game. It's very long, lots of castles to seize, lots of enemies to fight. These first 2 castles are pretty easy, and here's what Seliph is looking like for this final map. He only needs the Tyrfing. I don't think having 2 range is important right now, so the bolt sword will stay in the supply. So I have him decked out with a bunch of rings and the thief band. With the thief band, Tyrfing will basically be paying for itself. I can use it to my heart's content without having to worry about running out of gold. I can also give it a lot of kills at the start of this map, and once it reaches 100 kills, Seliph will have 87 total crit with it, and that's just crazy strong. Once I seize Edda Castle, things get a little complicated since the home castle becomes under immediate threat, and I have no choice but to return there, and I try and run up and intercept them because I really don't want to be stuck guarding the castle, but most of these guys don't attack and just run past me, so now they're in range of destroying the castle, so I have to run back and guard it. Then they still won't attack me except for the boss, Brian. He has 4 leadership stars, so I was planning on keeping him alive because the others would probably attack me on enemy phase if they would benefit from his leadership. But then he comes in and attacks me from 2 range on the castle gate and just stays there. And nothing will happen if I just leave him there, so I just kill him and accept the fact that I will have to kill the rest of these enemies one at a time on player phase. It takes a really long time, just like it usually does, but then I can just run up and seize Dozle Castle, and at this point the difficulty of this map ramps up a little bit. I go and hit the trigger for Scorpius and his squad to spawn in, and I pulled out the bolt sword for these guys since they're almost all bow knights. I put Seliph in range of all of them, and I thought for sure he was strong enough to deal with them all at once, but Scorpius is actually pretty strong himself, and he activates his charge skill and kills Seliph, so that was pretty unlucky. So I restart and try again, this time being a little more careful to stay out of Scorpius's range until I clear out some of these other guys first. Then it's just much easier to go into one range and kill him with Tyrfing. Next is Hilda and her army of barons. The barons are really annoying since they have Pavis, so once I get a chance to kill Hilda, I go for it, and that also cuts me a path to go straight to Frigga Castle and seize that and advance to the final part of this map. So now the rest of the enemies for this map show up, and there are a lot of dangerous ones out there. First we have Ishtar and a trio of strong Falcon Knights. I want to quickly take out one of these Falcon Knights, preferably the one with leadership stars, but I wasn't able to get to her, but I still took out one of them. But for now I need to get out of there because guess who's back? Yes, it's Arion, and he's heading straight for Chalfie, and this time I need to kill him. There's no other way around it, but Seliph has his holy weapon and leveled out the playing field, so things should go better, right? Well, the first match went to Arion. I reset and did things a little different to try and change the RNG, and this time Seliph died to the generics. Okay, third time's the charm. Again, I did one thing different to try and change the RNG, and it actually worked, and Arion goes down. But it's way too early to celebrate. There's still lots of work to do to beat this map. First, these other two Falcon Knights need to go. They're really not so bad since they're split up from each other and the rest of their pack. Now we have a lot of enemies trying to get down through this mountain path, and in the back is Ishtar. She is very strong and she has more speed than Seliph, so he can't double her. She has two nasty skills, Adept and Vantage, and to top it off, she has 5 leadership stars. So she's going to be pretty tough. Eventually, I meet up with her in the mountains, and I already know it's going to be impossible to kill her from there, so I retreat, and she also starts to retreat. So I figure she must be going back for reinforcements. So I decide that my best bet would be to fight her from Frigga Castle, and from there, we run into a problem where Seliph just gets hit by too many enemies, and then Ishtar can easily come in and finish me off. So I basically used the same strategy as I did with Arion and just had to reset a couple times until I got better RNG, and I crit to kill Ishtar in one hit. With her gone, it's easy to kill the rest of these enemies, including Julia, who kind of forced me to kill her since she was blocking the exit of the castle. Now I'm going to ignore Julius and the Deadlords for now because I do want to kill Manfroy and seize Veltomer. This is just because I'm going to need a castle to run back and forth to while fighting Julius, and I think Veltomer is slightly closer than Frigga. Now, most of the Deadlords can't really do much to me, so I have a pretty easy time defeating each of them, and there is a church nearby if I ever needed healing. I was probably most scared of the rogue stealing my money, but now on to the final boss, Julius. Here's a look at how Seliph and Julius compare to each other. Seliph has the renewal band just to help him survive for longer against Julius, and I want to boost his strength, skill, speed, and resistance for this fight. So looking at Julius's stats, you might think he won't be so bad since they are lower than Arvis's, especially his attack. However, his Lopter spell has a special effect which cuts Seliph's attack in half. So Seliph only has 30 attack when fighting him, meaning he only deals 5 damage each hit. Julius does have Nihil, so he can't be crit. He has Wrath, which is useless for him since Seliph also can't be crit. He has Pursuit, which also doesn't matter since Seliph has more speed. But Julius still has one more skill, Charge, and Charge would usually be a strong skill for an enemy to have. But in Julius's case, it was my saving grace. And why is that? Well, with Seliph only dealing 5 damage per hit, he's only going to deal 20 damage each turn. But Julius also heals for 15 at the start of his turn. So Seliph is really only dealing 5 total damage to him each turn. And that's if all his attacks land. And hit rates were a whole other problem for this fight. So So it would take Seliph 16 straight turns of never missing an attack and also dodging enough to not get himself killed in order for him to kill Julius. And for single RNG, that is a lot to ask for from an 81% hit rate. And we also have to factor in that if Seliph's going to have to hit 4 times a turn for 16 turns, then that would be 64 total weapon uses, and Tyrfing only has 50. So it would break well before killing Julius, meaning that killing Julius would be impossible had it not been for him having charge. So I just had to reset over and over again, just hoping for charges and for Seliph to hit. And after like an hour and a half, I wasn't having any luck. Julius kept dodging way too much and Seliph wouldn't dodge and was getting killed way too quick. I was getting really tired of it, so I had to bring Lana in because Lana became Seliph's lover. They start with 100 love points and they were gaining love points for all the time Seliph spent guarding the home castle. Seliph gets a 10% boost to hit and avoid if she's within 3 spaces of him, so my chances of winning should be a lot higher since Seliph should now hit and dodge more often. But this still took hours until finally I get a really good round of combat that took out half of Julius's health. Then I just had to pray that this would be the one and Seliph would continue to hit and survive for long enough to finally kill Julius. Goodbye. It was not nice knowing you. It would have been nice if I didn't have to use the lover bonus, and I'm sure Seliph could have won without it. I do feel that it just sped things up by a lot though. My last resort would have been to do the talk between Seliph and Lana, which would give him +3 resistance to help him survive for longer, but it still would have all just came down to RNG in the end. Sigurd had only 3 losses, and I'm pretty sure I went over each of them. Seliph had 67 losses, and I wasn't counting, but at least 50 of them had to have been from Julius. But I thought this was a fun run. It was definitely an interesting way to play FE4. Getting the most out of this game's crit system was probably my favorite part. And with all that said, thank you for watching. And if you enjoyed it, like, comment, subscribe, and have a great rest of your day.